The cope and the cheapness are strong with those who say Boston got the better of the Devers trade.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and RotoGraphs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. And coming up on today's show, I did say yesterday that we were going to be doing mailbag questions, but then I remembered actually that I intended all along, since this Devers trade went down a little over a week ago, to dive into the analysis of the contract and the trade itself and provide feedback on what I think is a ridiculous notion that the Red Sox got the best of this trade that a lot of anonymous MLB executives have been saying to the media. And, you know, some fans too, but very few in Boston kind of echoing the company line. How about David Ortiz, though? So we're going to break it down from all angles, get into the numbers, like the financial numbers, but also the dollars per WAR kind of numbers, all of that. And so, yeah, the full trade is that significantly, the Giants took on the entirety of the contract owed to Rafael Devers that the Red Sox had just handed out not long prior to this deal. They gave him a 10-year, $313.5 million extension that started in 2024. So he's only in year 2 of this. He only made it a year and a half into this 10-year extension before they dealt him to the Giants. It's worth pointing out right off the bat that $75 million of the $313.5 million is deferred to be paid in $7.5 million annually, half of which is paid each February 1st and November 30th, 10 years after it is earned through 2043. So starting in 2034, the Giants will be paying Rafi Devers $3.75 million twice a year on February 1st and November 30th for 10 years. So that money being deferred lowers the value so instead of 10 years, 313.5, meaning average annual value equals 31.35, it actually equals 29.66 according to the calculations by at least up on Roster Resource, but also, which is on FanGraphs, the Players Association assigns an average annual value in such cases. Like, for example, Shohei Ohtani with his unprecedented deferrals, $700 million contract, but he's paid $2 million a year right now and will get $68 million a year for the 10 years following the contract's expiration, which is insane. But that's the structure. So the average annual value is calculated to be for Ohtani only $46.1 million versus if you take 10 years, $700 million, obviously that looks like $70 million a year. So anyways, deferrals can have a major impact, and they have somewhat of an impact on the Devers contract. So that's the first thing. That's the only thing that anybody who says that the Red Sox got the best of the Devers trade can point to is the contract, not the players they got back, but the contract is the only thing that anyone can, like, if all these players were paid the same, it's obviously that it's obvious that the Giants got the best of this deal. And so as a fan, why should you care about the money that ownership is committing to pay a player? You shouldn't. And so all these anonymous front office executives are in their little bubble thinking, first of all, like I said, the cope and the cheapness, they are, don't let that person near my team. Don't let that type of thinking enter the chat into my team, because what that is teams there's no salary cap, and it would be different if there was a salary cap, and there very well may be, and that could end up mattering following the 2026 season. There is the expiration of the collective bargaining agreement, and we could end up with a salary cap, and then this stuff matters more, a lot more than it matters now, because right now there is no salary cap. So yeah, the Giants take on all of that contract. There are 8.5 years remaining, and I have calculated that it is 8 years. Okay, so we're taking the average annual value as calculated by Roster Resource, which I think is probably the number that the Players Association uses. And so it's 8 years, $252.1 million. 8.5 years, excuse me. That would be the value over 8.5 years. So starting next year, to put it in like single year terms, it would be an 8-year, $237.3 million deal, accounting for the deferrals. But I think it's definitely relevant and not talked about enough at all that Jordan Hicks was included in this trade, and he was owed by the Giants about $30 million over the next 2.5 years, half of this year and then 2 more years. So I'm just straight up subtracting that out. I know Hicks, it's not like he has absolutely no value, but to the Giants, I don't think they really lose much by losing Jordan Hicks here. And so when you take that into account and just let's just say for the sake of simplicity, you just subtract that $30 million out, and it was less than that. We're starting in 2026. Well, no, we'll start with now. If you subtract the $30 million owed to Hicks, it's 8.5 years, $222.4 million, and then starting in 2026, it's 8 years, $212.3 million, which is just $26.5 million a year. And what I start to see here is that there are so many players out there who are signed, who get these huge contracts, the type of contract that Devers would probably get if he were to hit the open market, entering his age 29 season, which he will be next year. But the free agent, he would have been a free agent entering 2024, so he would have been entering his age 27 season. And so I don't know. It's hard for me to say that he would have got significantly less than this, especially accounting for the deferrals and accounting for Hicks, discounting the deal a little bit if he were on the open market. So we have projections by Dan Zimborski at FanGraphs, which includes projections for Devers as a first baseman and Devers as a DH, and the WAR projection for each season for the next 8.5 years, including the rest of the year this year. And we also have comps. And I think the comps are where people don't really have a leg to stand on when they criticize the contract of Rafi Devers. I think that you see it and people are just kind of choosing to ignore those anonymous MLB executives who are cited all over the place. If you haven't read these executive quotes, it's in The Athletic, it's on MLB.com, like they're everywhere. And you can bet that if it was the Yankees or the Dodgers taking on Rafi Devers and his contract, it would be viewed through a totally different lens, because people would give the Dodgers the benefit of the doubt, just by way of example. And with the Giants, the Giants never get the benefit of the doubt. They're never picked in a playoff series, et cetera, et cetera. And so I really think as we continue to go through this and look at some comps like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., we're going to see that this Devers contract is absolutely reasonable. And in fact, maybe looks like a steal compared to some of the other deals that are out there that are comparable. So we'll get into those details in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Rougiette. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pill that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. I love that it's completely online. Rougiette connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Head to rougiette.com/lockedonmlb and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LOCKEDONMLB and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. All right, here we go. We're going to continue doing a deep dive into the Rafi Devers contract and looking for some comps. And ultimately, we're going to find that these people who are saying this is a bad deal for the Giants are out of their minds. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we've got a game to break down. The Giants start a home series after getting an off day at home against the They start a series against the Marlins at home tonight. It'll be Justin Verlander back from paternity leave on the mound, still searching for win number 1 against Cal Quantrill, who has a 5.68 ERA. Naturally, he'll probably thrive against the Giants. We'll see. Hopefully not. But it's not necessarily that straightforward to comp Rafael Devers, but it's fair to say, like, he's not Shohei Ohtani, and if you look at older contracts like Bryce Harper or something, that was a long time ago. Bryce Harper was an outfielder. So you're looking for like more defensively limited DH/first base types, even though Devers has played a lot of third. He figures to not play third, possibly at all ever again. He was not good there. And so you definitely could make the case he's like more Pete Alonso, Kyle Schwarber than, I don't know, some other stars on the open market. But to me, a great comp is actually Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who, if we just look at the offensive numbers and just overall, I mean, we can look at WAR per 600 plate appearances, FanGraphs WAR. So Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has put up 18.7 FanGraphs wins above replacement in 3,874 career plate appearances, which comes out to 2.9 WAR per 600 plate appearances, which is not great. But you also look, the first 2 years of his career, he didn't put up much. So let's do ages 22 through 26, this year being his age 26 season. And it's 18.2 divided by how many plate appearances? 3,117, which comes out to times 600 plate appearances, 3.5. So I think that's maybe a more accurate portrayal of his value. And he hasn't even reached his prime yet. But you look at like physical comps, like the fact that Guerrero Jr. is like on the larger side of things, and Devers, you could say, is as well. There's been a lot of talk that he came into camp with the Red Sox this year out of shape. A lot of that talk coming from guys like David Ortiz, of all people, who's just been bashing Devers online. It's just crazy. Like, he's clearly being a mouthpiece for the Red Sox, and it's a bad look. And I think everybody agrees it's a bad look for Ortiz. What he's doing, he's making himself look like a fool. So anyway, that's what did I say? 3.5 WAR per 600 plate appearances for Vlad Guerrero Jr., ages 22 through 26 seasons. So if we look at Devers, ages 22 through 26 seasons, just to be totally apples to apples, like I said, though, Vlad put up 18.2 in 3,117 plate appearances. Devers in those seasons put up 19.9 Fangraphs wins above replacement in 2,884 plate appearances. So like 250 fewer plate appearances and more production. The fact that he played third, but Guerrero Jr. also played third during this stretch. So I was going to say the fact that he played third changes the calculus a little bit. Guerrero, to be fair, has played a lot more first than he has third. And during that time, I think Devers pretty much only played third. He's never played first in his career. So yeah, he did only play third with maybe a couple innings at second sprinkled in or something. So, but anyway, that's 19.9 wins above replacement in those seasons out of 2,884 plate appearances, which comes out to 4.14 WAR per 600 plate appearances. So ages 22 through 26, Devers was the better player, the more productive player. Vlad is in that age 26 season right now. Devers is in his age 28 season, but it's 4.1, right, per 600 plate appearances. Last year, he had 601 plate appearances. Guess how much WAR he produced per Fangraphs? 4.1, exactly to that average, exactly. And he's on pace to pretty much hit it again. He's at 2.1, and he's played half a season. And so you extrapolate that out, and if he has a similar second half to the first half he has, he's on pace to be about the same for plus wins above replacement per. He has 360 plate appearances, so that would be 720 if he were to double that. So that's fair, maybe a little bit lower, but whatever. The point is, I think Vlad is a pretty fair comp. Now the thing is, Vlad is 2 years younger, but he signed a 14-year, $500 million extension that starts in 2026. So it starts next year, and he will be entering his age 27 season. So that's just last year for Devers, which is when his extension started as well, entering his age 27 season. So Devers entering his age 27 season, having had a more productive ages 22 through 26 seasons, got 10 years, $313.5 million with deferrals that make it worth more like 10 years, $296.6 million. And Vlad got 14 years, so 4 extra years. And because they started in the same quote unquote year, age 27 season, it's 4 years at the back end of it, for 4 extra years at the back end of it for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that the Giants do not have Devers under contract. So ages 37, 38, 39, and 40, those are all owed to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And I mean, 14 years, $500 million. That comes out to like $35 million. What is that? $500 million divided by 14 years, $35.7 million per year. And Devers, when you account for deferrals, it's $29.3 $7 million per year. And when you account for Hicks's contract, it's like 26.5. So it's almost 10 million per year less when you account, if you just subtract Hicks's contract. That's not perfect math because Hicks has some value. It's not like he's just money. He's a player who may contribute to the Red Sox. I don't think he was doing much for the Giants though. And I think he's very replaceable, and so do they. And I think that Hicks's inclusion in this deal had everything to do with offsetting some of the money. And we haven't even talked about the Giants gave up players, but that's why people don't like this deal. Is for the Giants. Those who don't like this deal for the Giants, they say you took on the whole contract and you gave up, some people say, quote, a ton of value. These are the same people who like probably bash the Giants farm system, and then, you give up, I think Kyle Harrison, definitely the prize of that return. We'll see about James Tibbs III, but Giants Tibbs was the 13th overall pick in the draft. Giants have the 13th overall pick in this year's draft, which is in like a couple weeks. And so these are draft picks, and Kyle Harrison hasn't yet done it at the major league level. He's still learning. We'll see. I wish him the best. But anyway, it's just crazy to me because if you look at Vlad as a comp, he's basically paid double in total money. Well, no. Well, it's 14 years. That's the thing. It's like 4 extra years, ages 37 through 40 is what's crazy. I mean, I get it from the Blue Jays' standpoint because they, like the Giants, have had trouble getting really good hitters to come to Toronto. And like they tried to sign Shohei Ohtani. They thought, there was that whole he's on the plane going to Toronto thing. That was their Arson Judge moment. And for the Giants, they cannot get hitters like this to sign with them. And so, trying to be objective, which I think I am, it's to me, it's more about how does Devers play for the next 8.5 years, and how do the players the Giants gave up play. But it's not so much about the contract, because I think the contract is something you worry about if there was a salary cap or if you were the one writing the checks. But as a fan, it's just about Devers and the players you gave up. And so we'll get into the projections and what the most recent dollars per WAR on the open market prices that when I say most recent, I mean most accurate estimates for what it costs, basically what this type of production should cost on the open market. So we'll evaluate the contract that way one final time to wrap up this analysis of the Devers trade. But compared to the Vladimir Guerrero extension, not to mention Juan Soto, who's not a perfect comp because it's a different level of offense from Soto, but you look at the value, it's like 45 million per year versus, like I said, about 25, 26 for Devers. And also Soto's deal taking him through his age, I believe, 40 season. It's a 15-year, $765 million deal. It's $51 million per year. It's double. He's getting paid double. And yeah, he's better, but he's not. I mean, he may be twice as good. I don't know. It's just people around the league who want to criticize the Devers deal I don't want those people in my organization, because they're the ones who are lowballing and trading away stars because they don't meet the model and the math isn't lining up for them. But sometimes you got to say, forget the math. Give me the hitter. Give me the great hitter. And that's what Buster Posey did here, and I think he did the right thing. We'll break down the projections for Devers and what it quote-unquote should cost on the open market in just a minute. And before we do, Today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Having everything in one app just made my life so much easier, I swear. Like having all my accounts scattered all over the place, I cannot believe I used to live that way. And so it is absolutely game-changing if you want to get on top of your finances, whatever your financial goals are, like whatever they are. Having everything in one hub is just invaluable. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the raw numbers, the WAR projections for Devers as both a DH and a first baseman, and if it aligns with the open market estimates, the best that we have, the best that I've seen, although it was a few years ago, and what it quote unquote should cost for that level of production. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll be talking about hopefully Justin Verlander's first win in a Giants uniform. Giants playing the Marlins, who are playing well coming into this series, but on paper, this is a series you should be able to win. And so we shall see. Game one, hopefully the Giants can avoid putting themselves in a hole like they did in game one against Boston. It was great that they were able to come back and win the next two, but the formula for winning a series usually starts with winning the first game. So it's a big one tonight, City Connect night. So hopefully I think they have only one win in those jerseys. So it's time to turn that trend around. So the projections for Devers came out in an article that went up on FanGraphs shortly after the trade. It may have even been the same day. And Dan Szymborski, it was just one projection system, Zips, that's his projection system, pumped out what does he expect, or what does the system expect out of Devers as a first baseman and as a DH. And I added it all up, and for the full 8.5 years, and it was a little more than 8.5 years at the time of the trade. We're approaching the halfway point of the season, 3 more games. So it was right about 8.5, but it comes out to a total as a first baseman of 23.3 wins above replacement for the life of the contract. As a DH, 21.9. So not that different, but slightly more as a first baseman, like 1.4 wins over 8.5 years. And that comes out to an average over 8.5 years as a first baseman of 2.7 wins above replacement per year and 2.6, rounding a little bit, as a DH. Now, the cost, according to also Dan Szymborski, who's kind of looked at free agent production and figured, this was in 2023 that I saw him write about this, that the way teams pay for wins above replacement on the open market, again, keep in mind this was before like the Juan Soto deal, so these probably need to be reevaluated, adjusted for inflation all the time. But it was that, first of all, it's not linear, so teams tend to pay about $5.3 million for the first win above replacement, and then $9.3 million for subsequent wins above replacement. And so like that first one is less valuable than the next one, is what that means. And so on and so forth. Like the more you put up, you just keep adding 9.3 for every additional win. And for Devers, according to these projections, if he was a first baseman over 8.5 years, that would be $187 million, when in reality, the Giants are on the hook for 222.4 if you take out the Hicks deal. And so again, this is a couple years old, so if you adjust for inflation, you may be right around 200 million, and the Giants are paying just above 200 million, subtracting Hicks, 252 million without subtracting Hicks. And if he's a DH, it's a $170 million value according to those somewhat old, 2-year-old numbers. But worth pointing out, the first 4.5 years of this deal, so the rest of this year and then the next 4, ages 29, 30, 31, and 32, it projects 17 wins above replacement for Devers as a first baseman and 15.9 as a DH. So that's 3.8 WAR per year as a first baseman, which is worth $31.4 million per year with 2-year-old outdated numbers or dollars per WAR calculations or estimates, and 15.9 as a DH, which is 3.5 WAR per year, which would cost, according to those estimates, $28.7 million a year. So there's a ton of value in the first 4.5 years of this deal. That's what the Giants are really paying for. And also, I mean, they're paying for the rest of it. But like I said, first 4.5 years projected to be worth 16, 17 wins above replacement. Subsequent or final 4 years of the deal, about 6 wins above replacement in 4 years. So that's like 1.5 per year. And that's obviously much less valuable. But again, when you look at a lot of contracts out there, guys are getting paid until they're 40. That's like become normal again. And so if we were to take Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and look at what is he expected to do, not just in ages 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, but also 37, 38, 39, and 40, I don't think it's going to look nearly as reasonable as this Devers one. So when all is said and done, like maybe you'd get a better value by just signing Kyle Schwarber or Pete Alonso. But also keep in mind, those guys are not 28 like Devers is right now. Pete Alonso, and also that's one point. But then the other point is that who is to guarantee that they will sign with you? Pete Alonso is going to be entering his age 31 season next year. Kyle Schwarber is going to be entering his age 33 season next year. And so you just can't get this type of bat on the open market necessarily. The Giants certainly haven't been able to. And even if you got a player like Schwarber or Alonso, they're older. And so the back end of that contract that I'm saying, yeah, it won't be the best value, but there's still something there. And it's not till he's 40. You're getting ages 28, 29, 30, 31. You're getting all those prime years also, which is hard to get in free agency. And it's extra hard for the Giants. And so that's what people don't understand. And I really think like any other way to look at it, you're looking at it wrong. That's my opinion. So that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.